Okay, so tonight's deep dive, right, is gonna be, well, it's gonna be a little heavy. I'll be honest. It's a question, honestly, that kind of keeps me up sometimes, and I think it's probably on a lot of people's minds, especially given everything that's going on in the world right now. So we're gonna be diving into what a third world war would actually look like.
Yeah.
Like in reality.
Yeah.
And you guys have sent over some really like thought-provoking stuff, articles, even some of those AI chatbot responses. And I gotta say, it's fascinating, like really fascinating, but it's also a bit unsettling.
Right. Well, I mean, it is a heavy topic.
Yeah.
And I think you're right to be kind of like fascinated and unsettled. Because the thing is, all those like everyday technologies we take for granted now.
Yeah.
Like the internet, AI, even just advanced weaponry, all that stuff. It could either be the thing that like lights the fire, or it could be the gasoline that really makes it explode.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I found so interesting in like especially some of the AI responses you sent over. Like they didn't hold back. They basically just straight up said that a modern war, like with all our tech and stuff, there'd be no real winners.
Yeah.
Like, everyone loses in that situation. And the sheer scale of the destruction, the loss of life, like it's almost hard to even, wrap your head around it.
Yeah. It's definitely a paradox. Like winning a war like that would almost be like losing.
Yeah.
But I think these hypothetical scenarios, even if they are scary, they force us to think about what could spark such a conflict in the first place. And if we look at history shows us some pretty clear patterns, wouldn't you say?
Totally. I mean, like, you can just look back at, like, the Cold War, for example. The rivalry between, like, the U.S. and the Soviet Union back then, that, like, almost brought us right to the... And, we got lucky. But that tension, oh, my God, it was, like... palpable.
Oh, yeah.
It really did feel like the whole world was just like holding its breath.
Yeah. Like one wrong move and boom, that's it.
Exactly.
And the thing is, like, that kind of tension, it hasn't vanished. You know what I mean? Like, one of the articles you sent over actually highlighted the South China Sea as a flashpoint right now.
Oh, right.
Like, right now, you've got multiple countries all claiming these different islands, the resources there, strategic control of the area. I mean, it's like, it's a recipe for potential conflict,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting you say that because like resources just seem to be like a recurring theme. Like a lot of the stuff that we got, it kept coming back to that.
Right.
One of the chatbot responses actually brought up like the water crisis over in the Middle East.
Oh, wow.
It was saying that like with the increasing droughts and stuff, the competition for water, which is already like a major source of tension over there, like it's only going to become even more volatile as things get like more and more scarce.
Yeah, absolutely. And your chatbot's not pulling that out of thin air.
Right.
Like, I mean, we're already seeing those kinds of things play out, those, kind of hints of it globally.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then, you can never forget about the human factor in all of this.
Of course.
That's always a wild card. Like ideologies, nationalism, I mean, those have been fueling wars for like centuries.
Yeah.
But like how does all this tech we keep talking about, how does that like play into all this? Like could it actually help, to prevent like a major conflict?
Well, that is the big question, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, technology, it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
On one hand, it could definitely escalate things to a level we've like honestly never seen before. I mean, just take cyber warfare, for example.
Oh yeah. That article about like cyber attacks, that was chilling. Like downright chilling.
Yeah.
Just the thought that like one nation could just like completely shut down another country's power grid. Like their financial systems, communication networks, the whole thing just
Everything.
gone.
Yeah.
It's almost unfathomable.
Yeah. But, I mean, as unfathomable as it is completely possible.
Right.
And, we're not talking about, like, taking out a few computers here, like, we're talking about disrupting entire societies.
Yeah.
And the more, like, we rely on all these interconnected systems, the more vulnerable we become.
Totally. And then like on top of all of that, you've got, AI and all the automation stuff, like adding another layer to the whole thing. Like, autonomous drones out there, like making life or death decisions on their own, like without any human intervention. It feels like we're stepping into this like whole new world of warfare.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Like the potential for like AI-powered weapon systems, it's immense, and it's something we really need to grapple with like now.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, there's the risk of what they're calling flash wars.
Slash
Yeah,
force.
like these conflicts that like escalate so rapidly because of AI decision making
Wow.
that like humans barely have time to even react,
Oh, wow.
before it's too late.
Yeah.
It's a scary thought.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, it's a sobering thought for sure.
Mm.
But even with all those risks, right? AI could also have a role in preventing conflict.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Like imagine systems that can like analyze huge amounts of data, like to try and predict these flashpoints before they even happen,
Gosh.
or like algorithms that can actually help, de-escalate tensions through like, communication and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a really complex landscape. Yeah.
Definitely complex. And speaking of complex, let's not forget about like those good old-fashioned nukes, right?
Right.
Like one of the sources you send over mentioned that even though it's been like decades since the Cold War,
Right.
the threat of nuclear war is still very, very real.
Yeah, it is. It is. And what's even more concerning is that like it seems like the taboo around using nuclear weapons
Oh, yeah.
is kind of fading a little.
Yeah.
Like there's all this talk about like, tactical nuclear weapons, like this idea that they could be used in a limited way.
Right.
It's a dangerous path to go down.
Yeah, super dangerous. But I mean, it feels like we're talking about all these like potential threats and everything, but what about like solutions? I mean, are there any?
Oh, there are.
Okay.
Like actually the AI chatbots that you sent over, they gave some surprisingly optimistic answers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, about global efforts for peace.
Okay.
And they're right to highlight that. Because there's actually a lot happening beneath the surface that,
Yeah.
that people don't always see.
Okay.
Like, for example, your chatbot mentioned the Arms Trade Treaty. It's this agreement that tries to regulate the flow of, conventional weapons. And it's a step in the right direction for sure,
Yeah.
even if it's not perfect.
Right. Right. It's about like creating some kind of framework
Exactly.
for accountability.
Yeah.
And making it harder for like weapons to just fall into the wrong hands.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's almost like building a dam,
Yeah.
to try and like control the flow of a river.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if you can't like completely stop it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And alongside treaties like that, you also have organizations like the UN, working like tirelessly behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
to like mediate disputes
Right.
and prevent these conflicts from like escalating. Like, I mean, just look at the recent crisis over in Sudan, for example.
Yep.
I mean, the UN peacekeeping mission there, it played like a crucial role in protecting civilians and trying to like, broker some kind of ceasefire.
Right. So it's kind of like having these international bodies,
Right.
that can like step in these situations and act as like a neutral third party.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's kind of like a referee in a boxing match,
That's a good analogy.
just making sure that like everyone's fighting fair.
Yeah, exactly. And beyond the UN, you also have these regional organizations,
Right.
like the African Union,
Mm-hmm.
which is actively working to address like the root causes of these conflicts.
Mm.
Things like poverty, inequality, climate change, resource scarcity, all that stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting because one of your sources, it talked about how economic interdependence
Oh yeah,
could actually be a force for peace.
right.
Like the idea is that the more countries are like intertwined
Mm-hmm.
through trade and investment and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like the less likely they are to actually go to war with each other.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like that old saying, if goods don't cross borders, soldiers will.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a powerful insight.
Yeah.
It speaks to the idea that like creating this shared sense of prosperity and interconnectedness,
Mm-hmm.
it can be a powerful deterrent to conflict.
Totally.
But it's not just about economics,
Right. It's about like building bridges between people.
Exactly.
Promoting cultural understanding
Yeah.
and challenging all those like age-old prejudices
Mm-hmm.
that so often fuel conflict.
Absolutely. Like education,
Mhm.
cultural exchange programs, even something as simple as travel.
Right.
Like these can all play a role in breaking down those barriers and fostering empathy.
Yeah, so it's about tackling this issue from like multiple angles.
Right.
Recognizing that there's no like silver bullet solution to preventing war. It's a multifaceted challenge that requires a, multifaceted response.
Yeah.
But like, is it even possible
Well,
to prevent World War III?
that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, looking at history, history might not be on our side.
Right.
It kind of feels like humanity has a knack for finding ways to fight each other.
Yeah.
But I believe it's not inevitable.
Okay.
I really do. I think it comes down to human choices,
Okay. Yeah.
to our collective will to build a better future.
So we're not just like passive observers in all of this.
No, we're not.
Like
right.
we actually have like agency.
Yes.
Like we have a voice and we can actually make a difference.
Absolutely.
That's actually really empowering to hear.
Yeah.
But on a like practical level, right? What can we as like individuals actually do to prevent something as massive as like a world war? Like what can we really do?
Well, I think for starters, we can be a lot more mindful about how we're consuming information.
Yeah.
One of your articles actually brought this up, how algorithms and social media, they can create these echo chambers.
Oh, right.
But they just like reinforce our existing beliefs.
Yeah.
And they can actually make us less open to different perspectives.
Totally. It's like we get trapped in these filter bubbles.
Yeah.
And we only see stuff that like confirms what we already think.
Right.
It's no wonder people are so divided these days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just being aware of that is a first step, like actively seeking out different viewpoints, challenging our own assumptions,
right,
and really engaging in respectful dialogue with the people who might see things differently.
right.
Like those are all crucial.
So it's not just about like being informed. It's about being like open-minded.
You got it.
Okay.
And beyond that, I think we can all we can all support organizations that are working to promote, peace and understanding, whether it's through diplomacy, conflict resolution, humanitarian aid.
Right. So like putting our money where our mouth is.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, we can also advocate for policies that prioritize international cooperation and diplomacy over, military solutions. It's about, making our voices heard and demanding that our leaders choose peace.
It's like that quote, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we can't just sit back and do nothing.
Right.
We have to like actively participate
right.
in shaping a better future.
Could have said it better myself.
Okay.
And finally, and this might sound simple, but it's incredibly powerful.
Right.
Just practicing empathy in our daily lives.
Right.
Treating everyone with respect, regardless of their background or beliefs.
Yeah.
Building bridges instead of walls.
So it's about like recognizing our shared humanity.
Precisely.
Okay.
Even amidst all our differences.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, preventing World War III, it's not just about treaties and diplomacy.
Right.
It's about a fundamental shift in our collective consciousness.
Okay.
It's about choosing peace, not just as an abstract concept, but as a way of life.
Wow. Well said. So as we wrapped up this deep dive, then I think the biggest takeaway for you guys listening is that the future isn't set in stone.
No, not at all.
We have a choice.
We do.
And our actions, no matter how small they might seem, they really can make a difference.
Absolutely. The potential for conflict, it may always exist, but so too does the potential for peace.
Right.
And it's up to each of us to choose which path we want to follow.
Yeah, that's a really powerful thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into, a topic that, while complex and at times unsettling, is ultimately about the choices we make and the future that we all want to create.
It's been my pleasure.